Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Steve and Lynda Make a Podcast. Steve and Lynda are off for this week. But with you here, I'm Brendan.
I'm Dan.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Parker.
And today, what we're going to do is to perform somewhat of another round robin, where we sort of go around the room, the virtual room, and consider what our background is. So last time we mentioned that I think it's an important question to ask: how did we get here? Because if we're doing this to any benefit for our listeners, then hopefully there's some demystification of the notion that you just take step-by-step sort of directions straight towards a career, when I think to varying degrees that between the four of us, that is entirely to completely false.
The idea right here, Brendan, that you're going for is that someone could follow our exact backgrounds and thus replicate our raging successes. Is that kind of what
Yeah,
we're
that's
going
the
for?
hope, is that you could just
right.
take the transcript for this entire episode, go step by step, and at the end of it, people will be calling you Jefferson Bezos and Stevenson Jobs. What other Elonius Musk? I think that's a jazz musician.
I remember him.
Yeah. So let's dive into the old details. I have certain questions that I wanted to ask, but I think the overall structure of the round robin would just be that we're talking about what our educational background is, what our work experience is, and see if we can trace some kind of a path from maybe where we were as young adults to where we are now.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah. I find that offensive.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair, because I think maybe that's me speaking from my own perspective too much. Anyone want to then just dive in and say that that's not necessarily the way things are going for you?
Nah, I feel old.
I got a good 2 years left. Please don't wish it away.
So how about this? I think that I have a sense of who started things. I'm just gonna cold call.
Ugh.
Are you ready for this?
We've already moved from popcorn
Can you
to
reset
cold
the
calling.
question?
Yes, I don't know that the question was all that clear to begin with.
Okay, yeah, I was
so
trying to be
I'll
like,
say-
what are we saying? I was like, yes, nope.
So basically, we've already got a breakdown of what your projects are at this point, and we've had the update from last week and all of that. But basically, Ian,
Yes, sir.
how would you describe where you were maybe 10 years ago, and then how that sort of person and career and education and work all sort of changed and adapted to where you are now? Probably
Good luck.
just starting with... Yeah, right.
Good luck, dog.
Yeah, man, that's a tall order. But I'll
Probably
do my
just
best.
starting with where you start, like where you were right after you left high school, or maybe what your interests were in high school, if there's any kind of a thread that tracks all the way to where you are now.
What was your GPA?
Oh man, that's going to be a tough one. I'll have to consult the records. Yeah, okay. 10 years ago, I was a hotshot superstar academic with unlimited potential and just all the prospects in the world. And I was choosing between like no. Yeah, no. I mean, when I was coming to the end of my high school career, I was like not really interested in going to college, but it was like the thing to do. And so in response to that, I was trying to figure out like I don't know, what's the lowest stress, like most fun thing that I can pursue? And what I came up with was, well, you guys know this, but I was going to be a park ranger for the National Park Service. And so I went to school at a little known university in Western PA called Slippery Rock University.
Wow.
What's their mascot?
Their mascot is like a rock. It's just like a. No, I think they have like a mascot that's not at all related to the fact that their name is Slippery Rock University.
Go Slippery Rock.
Yeah, it might be like a, I don't know, like a gladiator or something. Who knows? But yeah, so I tried that out for a while. I ended up not loving it as much as I thought I was gonna, which, go figure if you put all of a weekend worth of thought into what you're going to do for the rest of your life, it, doesn't really materialize the way you think it will.
Now, was it really just a weekend? Or how much are you exaggerating, I guess?
I am exaggerating a little bit, but also, like, I don't know, man. I didn't make good decisions when I was 18, and that's not to say I make good decisions now, but I made worse decisions when I was 18.
What do you mean?
Oh, just like everything.
No, for real. So you mean, are we talking about that one time that you went hiking on the Appalachian Trail?
Oh yeah, well that was actually after. Well, so that's you're skipping ahead.
Hey, Brendan,
in the story.
Apologies. Tell me what awful decisions you made.
Oh man, I'm trying.
You don't have to. Don't let him.
Back. I don't know. Like I just always blew off school and stuff, and I like decided I was gonna play video games till 3 a.m. and then like sleep through class and that kind of stuff. That was just that was kind of like where my, I don't know, like level of motivation and level of like interest in school and stuff kind of was. I was just kind of floating around in that space, like well into college actually.
Really?
You didn't know this?
No, I not in the college years. I guess I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it was like
But if you weren't loving it, that makes sense.
Yeah, and like I was doing okay, and I mean, like, go figure. It's not a very challenging major, learning how to be a park ranger. But I was doing
sure
fine.
There are some park ranger students right now who are pissed that you said
that. You may be right, but I would venture to guess that everybody that I went to school with would like 100% agree with me. I like a lot of the people in my program were like kind of had a similar mentality. Like they were just looking for something like enjoyable that they could do as a career and fairly low stress. And like, I think it worked out for most of them. But for whatever reason, it just never really like, it never really stuck. But then, okay, so at some point I like dropped out because it was not going super well.
like grades weren't turning out, or was it like an emotional well-being thing?
It was very much an emotional well-being thing. I knew early on that like it wasn't like college wasn't really for me, or at least not in the way that it had been going, like based on the first couple semesters. But it was like the feedback I got from the people I talked to about it was like, oh, like everybody has a hard time in school, and like, a lot of people don't like their first couple semesters, and you just got to like find your, I don't know, like find your social circle and your like your interests and stuff like that. And so I was like trying to like muddle through. Yeah, go ahead.
No, there's that constant I like that refrain from folks who are like involved in an institution, consistently saying like, no, you'll figure it out, and if you haven't figured it out yet, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's not great. And also keep paying us while you figure it out.
I was going to say, it turns out it's a great sales strategy.
I know you don't like this now, but there's potential for you to like it in the future. And also you have this opportunity to rack up a nice little like chunk of debt, which like, what can you do? Yeah, exactly. And ultimately I did get some paper, but it was like
Ooh.
a whole meandering journey. So Brendan asked about the Appalachian Trail thing. So that's, yeah, like after like kind of like floundering for a bit, for lack of a better descriptor.
Perfect descriptor.
Yeah, so there's like a bit of major changing, and then like at a certain point I was just like, this isn't working, and I just kind of left. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll like hike the Appalachian Trail for a while and figure out like what I want to do with my life. And that lasted all of like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, and it was like raining, and I was like, it's not this. I don't want to. I don't want to just be like a hobo hiker guy forever. And then at that point, I just like, I don't know. I had to like, I don't know, sit down and like have some hard conversations with myself about like, well, what are you going to actually do? Because it's got to be something.
Didn't you though have some of that conversation with yourself when you were hiking though?
Those 3 to 4 years on the trail.
Days, Dan. I think maybe you misheard
As your
me.
beard started to brush the ground, you hadn't come to that conclusion yet, Ian, after those 4 years?
Yeah, that was, I mean, I think that was, it was kind of illuminating in that it was like another thing that I hadn't given a lot of thought. I just kind of jumped into thinking like, oh, maybe this will be fun, or like this will be a way for me to like kind of avoid thinking about my future for a bit longer. And then like just the fact that it went poorly, and like I had some time to kind of, I don't know, just like face the reality of like, if you keep avoiding like making a decision, you're just going to keep having like difficult negative experiences. So it was educational in that way, I guess. Yeah, it didn't take me as long as I expected to figure out.
I so remember. So for those of you listening, for Steve and Lynda's loyal fans, who may not be as familiar with our backgrounds, I so remember dropping Ian off at an inlet for the Appalachian Trail with this notion, like what we're 20 years old, right? Or like maybe 19 or 21, and dropping him off with this notion that like he's gonna ride off into the sunset and I'm never ever gonna see him again. And then like 2 weeks later, you probably texted me and like casually asked what was going on. I was like, not much. Where'd you end up? Like, I'm at home.
Brendan, did you?
Yeah, man.
I vividly remember, I think you telling me that Ian was on the trail. You either stopped by my parents' house.
Oh yeah.
It must have been in the summer, right, Ian? Did you start in like a May or something? Or like when did you? Do you remember what time?
Yeah, it was either late spring or early summer. I'd have to look back at the old text history.
Oh, it's a long look.
It goes back that way?
Yeah, you guys finish the podcast and I'll scroll back to the beginning of time.
Because I think I remember, Brendan, you stopping and like, I don't think you were like scheduled to come over or whatever. Like I was just doing something in the loft of my parents' house, and like, I don't know, like I heard someone coming up the steps and it was you, and I was like kind of taken aback because I wasn't, wasn't expecting anybody to like come charging up the steps of my parents' house. And you're like, yeah, Ian's like hiking on the trail. And I was like, I thought the same thing. I was like, okay, I guess I've seen him for the last time ever.
I don't know, guys. I don't
Well, listen, that's not to say that you're like, that it was at all disingenuous, because you were set out to make some realizations, and it just seems like you did make those realizations just on a different time frame from what any else of us sort of romanticized the time frame to be.
Yeah, man, honestly, I thought I was going to be out there for, I mean, to get down to Georgia, that's like, months and months and months. That's kind of what I expected. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just turn around and come back. Who knows? That's not how it went at all. But anyway, after I got back, I did continue the soul searching process. Yeah, and I don't know, just tried to figure out like what would be like a little bit more like sustainable as like a long-term career. So like something I was missing in the like parks thing was like it's nice to be out and hiking around, and I think I would have enjoyed like the whole like hiking around and clearing trails and doing that kind of stuff, but it just wasn't that stimulating, mentally.
You calling them dum-dums?
No,
No.
I went to school with some very like smart people, and like it's not yeah, like I don't know, I think like if that's what you're looking for, just kind of like have, I don't know, a more relaxing lifestyle, and
Yeah.
I don't know,
It
I guess
doesn't
get
necessarily
your
have to be intellectually stimulating for you still to be a highly
yeah.
intellectual person. Yeah.
Yeah, like if that's not what you're looking for from this particular facet of your life, like I think that's fairly common. And like shit, I mean, like we all have experienced work stress. Like I completely understand why like some very intelligent people would want to like forego that.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, baby. But yeah, I don't know. I guess at that point in time, what I had arrived on was like, I wanted something that was going to be a little bit more like, yeah, I don't know, just like challenging day to day.
And I know, let me interject real quick, because I remember
for
a
sure.
conversation
Please.
that we had around this time, about basically you like the question of how much you want your work to be a vocation versus like a daytime occupation, and to just articulate that a little bit more, like how much you want to live and breathe your work versus how much you want to be able to compartmentalize something that you can do during the day to satisfy I don't know, like satisfy your quote unquote debt to capitalism or whatever you would say, like how much you have to punch the old card clock that we talked about last time.
Yeah. I think we had like a number of conversations in that vein. I was working through some stuff, man. I appreciate you talking to me about it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You're welcome.
I still haven't answered that question, honestly. Like I still talk to Maggie about that. Like to what degree do I want work just to be like a means of earning money versus like, making it something that's like fulfilling. And I don't know, I still go back and forth. Like if it makes sense just to like, optimize for income, or like, I don't know, like should it tick those other boxes of like giving me something that lets me like impact society in a positive way and like have like, some sort of like positive social interaction with people. And like, I don't know, like I think it's tough because we do spend so much time at work, and so like you end up needing a lot of those things out of it because there's just not room elsewhere.
But did that at all influence basically what your next step was?
At that point, no. So these are some more like recent musings. So let me get back to the headspace of the past.
Ooh, shudders.
Let's cue some sort of like little memory
spooky music. Memory music. Okay, cool. I don't know what that would be, but okay, yeah. Dan, please cut in some fanciful memory music.
Of course.
What happened next? Yeah. So anyway, like I ended up deciding on like comp sci. Like as I was exploring all my different options, I ended up like just doing a little like programming tutorial, and I just remember being like immensely frustrated by not being able to figure it out for a while, and then like there was just this like when I finally got it working, there was this like I don't know. It was like it was the best feeling in the world. There was just this like release of tension, and like I felt like a genius for I don't know making some like picture bounce up and down on the screen. I don't know. It was something like trivially stupid, but and at that point I was like, oh cool, yeah, like that was really fun. Let me see if I can do that like as a thing. And then it turns out you can do that as a thing. Not necessarily making pictures bounce up and down, but like more generally. Yeah, so then I ended up like I went to community college for it for a year, and then I applied at Temple, which if anybody's listening from out of state, that's just a like little state school we have here in Philadelphia.
Go Owls.
Go Owls. But yeah, I did a like dual program in CS and math, and did a couple internships. One of them with kind of like a big like corporate employer in Philadelphia.
That's where you put in the goat noise to
Yeah, bleep it out. And then also like I did one with a startup based out of Virginia, I think, and that was like all remote. But anyway, got the degree, ended up going to work for the big company. Yeah. He who shall not be named. And yeah, so I my job with them was like I was part of this rotational program, so I like moved around the country to work on different tech teams, like different projects, and that was really cool because I got like effectively I got to do 4 jobs in 2 years. Like I got to kind of like see what aspects of work were kind of like common between teams, and what like what like opportunity there was for like different dynamics and stuff like that. So that was pretty neat.
Did you find that working in those teams was appropriate sort of for leveraging like your motivation, or was it maybe a conflict?
Appropriate for leveraging my motive. You mean like did I find the work dynamic to be motivating?
Yeah, I guess, or just like in this search for what is an appropriate path,
Yeah.
did that aspect of things, was that enticing, was that useful?
So I'm not sure if this is an answer to your question.
I don't know if
No,
it
I
was
don't.
a useful question.
Yeah, I don't think I'm 100% clear on what you're asking, but I can talk generally about like the work experience and what my takeaways were, if that's kosher.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's I think what I effectively learned is that like I really enjoy that type of like creative problem solving, like the idea that you have some like abstract problem and you need to figure out how to like implement a solution to it, or like build something that can like satisfy a need, or like that dynamic I really enjoy. Um, the rest of it, like the whole like interpersonal thing and like managing people's expectations, and kind of that bit of it, I never really liked. But I always like did a decent job putting up with it, I think. But mainly just because the actual work was so rewarding.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know. Does that answer
Oh
your
yeah,
question at all?
it does. Yeah. I mean, and then the
Okay.
only reason I ask is because that I mean, we've talked at least a bit about like making things public or working in partnerships. And I just think certainly everyone has varying degrees of how much they need that, or how, varying degrees of how much that is useful to them. And I just wonder if that influences where you end up. We're all right now doing things that are kind of independent, and I, for one, am finding that to be really limiting. I just feel like
interesting.
I'm floundering because I don't have the kind of interpersonal problem solving, energy, feedback, whatever.
Yeah. That's fascinating to hear because it's completely alien to me. So what, like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess like what like aspects of working with other people do you find energizing? And like, are there any that you find like draining, or is it all roses and sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and puppies? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Certainly everything comes with two sides. But I would say
I don't think so.
What's that?
I'm just messing around.
Everything's entirely straightforward. I do want to finish off the last things the last steps of yours. But this is a good segue into some of the things that I would sort of just consider as part of my background. But I find that if I'm left to my own devices, that I become sort of overly analytical, overly self-conscious, overly thoughtful, and end up never executing absolutely anything.
Okay, kind of like an analysis paralysis kind of situation.
And this is something we talked about off the air a little bit, and I was thinking about this. For those of you listening, off the air is actually just indication that we're talking about an episode that we recorded that we entirely fucked up. So you'll only see it as a contributing Patreon member.
Oh gosh.
It was my fault, and that's all that I care to say.
It wasn't even.
We all blew it. But we talked a little bit about like, oh shit, what was that thread?
You don't get anything done.
Yeah, that it's so hard to, even when they're projects that I'm passionate about, I just find this weird fizzle that inevitably ends up happening when I'm deep enough into the solution to a problem or deep enough into planning something that I'm like, oh, well, I figured it out. So and now I don't have to do it.
Oh, dude, I feel that.
But I think what
deeply.
I'm saying is that like the interaction with other people and the accountability to other people, obviously we're doing this in part for accountability, but even more so for me, I think I just need in-person accountability. Otherwise, I'm going to get very little done.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think we kind of touched on that when we were talking about, things in this vein, the idea of like sharing what you're doing versus kind of like, keeping it to yourself.
The Oprah versus Ted conversation.
Yeah. And you definitely mentioned then.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like I said, that's very interesting to me because I actually have the opposite problem where like I find those like relationships and interactions and like that's all like distracting. Like that like reduces my productive capacity. So it's weird to me that you can exist in like absolute contrast to that. Like I can't get my head around the fact that someone else has a different subjective reality.
And yet we are the dearest of friends.
Yeah, yes we are. Opposites attract, I guess. So
before I take over, what are the last few steps that lead you to where you are?
Oh gosh. So
the juicy steps.
let's see. So after the rotational program, I went and worked with another team at that same company for about a year. And that was fun. It was a good team. Not super stressful. And then around the 1 year mark, I don't know, I just started feeling kind of antsy, and I was like, all right, I think I'm ready for a bit of a challenge. And then Maggie and I had also been talking about trying to dip our toe into the whole digital nomad thing. And so at that point, we were kind of like casually looking for remote jobs, and one came up. And then I went through the interview process with them, and I got the offer, so I decided to go for it. And then I spent about a year and a little bit with them. And that was a tough year. It was like a really quickly growing, I guess they're still a startup, but they're like Series E, F, I can't keep up. So they've gotten like some funding, and they're just onboarding customers like crazy. And they're struggling, or at least when I was there, they were really struggling to like hire enough people to keep up with the workload. And so inevitably that just, that extra work gets split amongst the people that do work there already. And I was one of those people, and I got fucking tired of it. And so that's when I started thinking about like, okay, so I've kind of developed this skill set over the course of the past 5-6 years. And it's like super useful, and I really enjoy like this style of work. Like I said, the creative problem solving. But not so much the like interpersonal dynamics and the just kind of the like way that working at a big company where you have other people like relying on you and your output and your I don't know, expediency. Just like I wanted to try something else besides that. And so that's where I kind of hatched this idea of like, can I come up with a way to just do the creative problem solving? And so that's when the idea for the money printer was born. Because that's a really hard problem. And
let's go around the horn and see if we can each describe what the money printer actually means, because I suspect that that it makes no sense to me, but
you only suspect that it makes no sense to you at this point.
Dan, how would you describe what you're doing?
I mean, all right, you turn it on, and then you try to. Sometimes, depending on the rate, you might use something like a backpack or a laundry basket and just catch as much as you can coming out. And then you turn it off if you want to, but ideally you just kind of leave it on.
Okay, so I wasn't that far off.
No.
No, but like you're definitely leveraging the tools, which are like computer programming, right? Comp sci is your education. You're also leveraging like programming more practically from the work that you've done at Incorporated. As well as other Ant Incorporated, which I don't know the name of.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like you're creating algorithms basically to mimic like changes in stocks, changes in valuations of stocks and currencies, right?
Yeah. Well, so again, creating is like a little bit generous. Mostly stealing.
Whoa.
Not the stocks. Just the
opportunity to rephrase. Here you go.
No.
Everyone's comfortable with it, Dan.
But yeah. I mean, effectively, it's I'm using kind of the practical skills that I've learned in building like production software for some of these bigger companies, and then also like using the math background a little bit, and like the thing I'm most excited about is just like taking an opportunity to like learn about a new kind of problem. Um, I guess I should probably say, like, I didn't know really anything about like finance before starting. I mean,
The
like
stonks.
yeah, the stonks. I was like, oh, okay. I get that I probably want to max out my 401k match, and just in general, like I want to have, um, like a decent amount in savings and some index funds. Um, but beyond that, like this is all very new to me. And I don't know. That's exciting. It's terrifying. Uh, but it's also exciting, like having something new to sink my teeth into. Like this is kind of the next iteration, I guess, of like making an image bounce up and down on the screen. uh Something I have no idea how to do, but like I just remember that feeling of yeah, like finally figuring out a hard problem. And I guess I'm just like hoping to recreate that. So yeah, we'll see.
You tied it nicely back to that bouncing image. I'll say
All
that.
the symmetry.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, your Dan's description was more or less accurate.
That's what you're hoping for. You hope
Yeah.
you could program a little reverse switch and then it becomes a shredder. You don't want
Parker,
that.
how would you
I was
describe
about to
what he
say.
does?
I don't know. I honestly thought there was a little bit more of a ritual involved, so I feel like you guys don't want to know. I thought he had to like crack an egg into his DVD drive or whatever, and then paste these charts because there's a give and take to make balance in the world. So
Yeah, like sacrificing chickens and stuff.
there's like an egg or human blood or something like that, and you get like $6.
Yeah. There's some weird voodoo, and the eggs only cost $6, so I'm a break-even trader.
Exactly, yeah. But you're doing it. You're conjuring.
Yeah,
Conjuring.
yeah.
Parker, so thinking about your pathway, right? Ian's like starting out pretty different from where he ended up. At least my understanding, and you'll correct this if it's incorrect, but my understanding is that your pathway is far more linear, or at least of the four of us. Let's see if that's fair to say. Yeah, I don't know. Like
Uh,
a little more linear.
I don't know if linear is the word. So I was actually just talking to me and
Prove
Ian.
him wrong.
We took a trip to True Value a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this because I like realized like this is gonna get pretty heavy right now. But me and Ian had a early college fallout based over a video game. So there's a couple months there that were erased from the history. So we're obviously laughing about that, but we like were catching up kind of like what actually happened during those months. And Ian was telling me like, issues he was having with school. And then to go back to me being an 18-year-old, I can sympathize with Ian because I did not want to go to college. And I actually remember like, I think I was in your loft, Ian, when I got the call from my mom that I got the heavy envelope from Westchester. So, and I went there.
I think I remember that.
That makes it so daunting.
Right? Yeah, honestly, I was just like, cool. I guess we're doing that then. But so went there, and I actually started out as a intensive Russian major because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my sister was like, Russians on the critical needs list for like the I don't know, United Nations list or whatever, like for like ambassadors, you should do that. And I was like, sure, Camille thinks it's cool, I'm gonna do it. Did that for like a year, was I think pretty good at it, but then realized I didn't want to do it anymore, so switched to actually computer science because one of my friends on my rugby team at the time was like, do computer science, you make a bunch of money, it's super easy. And I was like, oh, okay, like I've never been good at math before, but like it might as well come now. Like this is a fully developed human brain, which it wasn't at 19. So
that you think that though.
Yeah, right. Like I know it should have worked, but it didn't. So that cost some money too. That was about another year and a half. And then I remember like sitting down and talking to my dad and being like, yo, I really don't want to do this anymore. Like I kind of just want to like I was like doing like landscaping or something at the time. I was like I really like landscaping and like I like working outside and stuff like that. I think I'm gonna just do that for a while. And he was like, look. Also, like I should note that my dad went to college in like the 70s, and it was a very different time. And like I don't know, but he was just like, "You're 2 years in, so regardless, you only have 2 years to go." And I was like, "Oh well, like you know what? I trust that. Like, there's no reason that you would. I mean, you're pretty much a student right now. Like, why would you not know the workings of the I don't know educational system of Westchester University?"
Let me just note that is basically exactly the same argument that we were talking about with the end, that like anyone in an institution or who's familiar with an institution or agrees with an institution is like, no, like you're gonna figure it out. You just keep coming.
You're fine, and you're like, "No, I'm flailing," and they're like, "Well, not my problem," because like after this conversation, I'm going to bed. Like I don't know.
I think that's something like I know that we talk about it as though it's sort of insidious or maleficent or something like that, but or malicious maybe is a better word for it. But I wonder if that's just like all of us adults are children still, and that's just like kids wanting to have their team, like the team that they're a part of, be respected and be the right path through things, and they just want to be like affirmed that whatever they were a part of is the right thing to be a part of.
I'm sure it probably leads into like, and I'm not saying that this is gonna get like one step further. Your parents probably also like have insecurities about what their kids are doing, so they're probably like, you need to do A, B, and C to get D. You know, like it doesn't really matter how you get there, but like to an extent, like I'm sure that I don't know, you have these like conversations with your parents at some point that are like also like the whole like what Ian was saying about choosing what you're gonna do for the rest of your life over a weekend. That's like incredibly real, and it's like a flawed system. I don't know, like I don't know, you literally like senior year, maybe junior year, you're finally like they're like, oh, and here's marijuana and here's alcohol, you can kind of have this all the time if you want, so you're kind of only there for like 60%.
Nobody had that conversation with me.
No, but I'm saying like
giving it to you.
No, but I'm saying like nobody's giving, but I'm saying you find it and you're just kind of like, oh, like I don't know, like this is fun, like I can do this all the time, like I don't know, and then you're about to I don't know, you're pretty much
taking worse at college.
Yeah, exactly. And they're also like, by the way, you're also going to take out pretty much like a quarter mortgage on this, so you're like, buckle up because you're going to be paying this off for at least 10 years. Like I don't know, it's all silly, but yeah, so that wasn't true about halfway through college. So I was just like, Dad, I really want to do something with computers. Like I think I just understand the working of like basic, I don't know, technology. Like I want to do something with that. But like everything else, pretty much I was just like, this sucks, I'm going to quit. And he's like, don't quit, like find something else. And I was like, all right. So I like looked around and I was like, oh, like, I don't know. And like, I still like Ian grew out of like I'm going to play video games till 3 a.m. And well, I'm not doing it till 3 a.m. anymore. I feel like the whole point of working is so that I can like pay off doing that for at least 3 hours a day or like maybe an hour a day. Like
I'm 2:30 a.m.
Yeah. I'm pulling one over on the man if I can, like, you know, I don't know. But
I will just say, Parker, I haven't grown out of it, and that's the play anymore. Is like it'll suck me right back in.
And that's been like the biggest, like the hardest thing for me right now with like freelancing is like literally today, like I like out of like muscle memory, like opened up a video game and then had to close it. But then it's like almost like on your mind, like caving away at your brain for like the last like 8 hours. And I got like 30 minutes in right before this, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, that was good. It was like a hit of like like heroin or something. I was just like, oh thank God. But
that's real.
It's terrible, but it's also like, you know, it's kind of, you do what you want to do, and at this point, like for a while, I was just kind of like, like I have to be successful and I have to be outwardly successful so people know that I'm successful. But then I think I hit like 26. And I'm just like, fuck that. Like, this is great. Like, I don't know. Like, my family thinks I'm okay at least, and like my friends, I still have friends, so that can't be fucking up that much there. And like, I don't know. So it's all just life's dumb, guys. That's the takeaway.
Oh my.
Not actually. Going back to the 2 years thing. So I went to John Baker, who is shout out to John Baker. If you're ever listening to this, you were
Hey,
just
John.
the nicest person in the world, and you were a great inspiration to everybody. He was the head of the art department at Westchester for like Bachelor of Fine Arts, like all those kids, including graphic design. And I remember just like asking around. I was like, how hard would it be to like switch into this? Because I think I like took a it was like a art history course with him, which was like pretty much, this was also like a jaded view. It was like a introduction to museums or something, or history of museums. Pretty much it was only seniors and me, like, I don't know, sophomore, but freshman as far as like design was concerned. And we just went to museums on Fridays and then had to do a presentation at the end of the semester. And then he took us out to lunch after the museums. It was, I was just like,
can
art,
I still take that or
yeah,
what?
you should. Oh my god, it was great. I was just like, art is it. Like, I don't know why, because I always wanted to take more art classes in high school, but I felt like it was like not like the gifted thing, but like it was like, I don't know, you had to be like an artist. And I was just like, I'm not an artist. And I still don't consider myself an artist. Like, I'm a designer. I know what looks good, and I don't like, I don't know. I try not to be an asshole about it, but like, it's like one of those, I don't know. But that was kind of like the turning point. That actually wasn't the turning point, but like I knew I wanted to do
Sometimes
something different.
those things just take like a moment of legitimizing
Yeah.
from someone that you respect.
Exactly. No, but either way, they were like, I was like, yeah, so like I'll graduate in 2 years, right? And they were like, oh fuck no, we're like a small state school. There's no expedited program. So that's the story. I think it was like Tommy Boy when they were like, plenty of people go to school for 6 years. They're called doctors, but they're also called Phoenixville area graphic designers, or at least one. And so I even like 2 years into graphic design, we had like a staffing shift, and then I had like some younger professors come in. And they kind of like hooked me into some shit and like got me super excited. And like got me working on some cooler projects. And I was like, this is actually like dope. Like, this is the stuff I want to do, which is kind of where I got into like the branding and packaging elements. I was like, this stuff's sweet. Because it's pretty much like I had an art history minor going at the time, so I was just like looking at all these cool like old like Prohibition era and like turn of the century like packaging, and like at the time I think I was like playing Red Dead Redemption and like all these like wall murals for like, I don't know, provision stores and stuff like that. And I was like, you're telling me that I could just like make this for people now and like you'll pretty much make a career out of it? And everybody's like, oh yeah, that's like a thing. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Doesn't it feel good when it clicks? Like when you find something and you're like, yes, this is it.
Well, it's great when it clicks, and now I'm at the point now where I'm trying to get to like click again. I mean, actually, this is like a good week, but it was like, I don't know, it's like weird freelancing, because then you're like, why isn't it clicking for everybody else to let it click for me? Kind of like, why isn't anybody else seeing this? Like, trying to get your own clients and stuff like that. But so I graduated. At the time, I was doing landscaping. I was doing landscaping for this woman, Lubna Abu Osfa, over in Kimberton, and my like boss was like, yeah, you should go talk to her if you're doing graphic design. She's like, she runs an advertising agency. And I was like, oh, no shit. So I like went up to her. I was like, hey, Lubna, like, do you need like help ever? And she's like, yeah, like my intern like literally left like 3 weeks ago, so like I've been looking for one. So I ended up like interning for her for a year, and it was like awesome. Like, got a lot of like, it was like a lot of like medical work and like boutique medical stuff like that, but it was cool, which then led me to Sparks, which was like the events and trade show marketing agency up in Ben Salem, where I worked at for like 3 years, and that got me to working with some like bigger clients, which was kind of exciting. But also like towards like the end of the 3 years like kind of burned me out. So then I was like, fuck all of this. I'm going to open up a coffee shop because Artisans just closed down. And I was like, it's all going to happen. Everything was lining up. Had the
Wait. But what happened?
Well, I thought we weren't talking about current events, but I should let everybody know that there's a virus. And a lot of people don't want to go in. So if you're going to leave your job and make a drastic career change, I would not do it the same year as when they have what they call red phase, where they close down indoor dining. That does not help opening up your aspirations of a coffee shop by any means. But it does kind of open the doors for like I feel like inner happiness because that I don't think anything else will like kick my butt into gear to like start doing freelance stuff. I was lucky enough to do some freelance work with Sparks, my old client. Like they were like upset to see me go as far as the coffee shop stuff, but they were just like even like the VP that I was talking to, who's like my manager's manager, was like, you gotta fucking do it. Like,
your grand boss.
My grand boss, yeah, my great grand boss. But like they were like, I don't know, they were super supportive of the whole thing. And I guess that's like.
Did they know that you were sort of forming your own boutique?
How do you mean?
Were they aware that you were
with the coffee
essentially
shop
creating a business? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, the coffee, the freelance stuff didn't exist yet. I thought that like it's literally like because I freelanced for them from like November, or I guess actually just like late December to March until like the shutdown. And then I realized like the coffee dreams weren't happening, and like literally like I was like, oh, what do I do? But like even like Sparks like pretty much like furloughed half of their like team, so like I wasn't going back there anytime soon, which was like a really weird feeling because I was just kind of like like I'm on like a no man. I don't know. It's like being on an island and being super freaked out, but like it kind of like to pivot. I was like, wait, I can do graphics. It's just like finding out who can I do graphics for. So ever since then, I've just been getting kind of creative, and the boutique-y stuff is just kind of, or the new, I guess like, I wouldn't call it an agency, but the partnership or collective thing has just kind of stemmed like in the past couple months. So yeah, that's about it.
So I totally forgot that you were studying Russian.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Can you say something in Russian? Do you remember any of it?
So it's weird, like if I'm like watching a show, you pick up like Pravda, Здравствуйте, and like all like the like I don't know, like the basic Как дела, and all these like weird like sayings that like it's like how do you go to the bathroom, hi, hello, all that stuff. Меня зовут, like my name is, like all that stuff. But I don't know, like some of it. I feel like I remember more German than I do Russian. That's saying something because, well, I'm not gonna say anything about Frau N, but you know, we were all there.
That is interesting that you hold on to this stuff. Well, I mean, I guess you picked it up when you were, so
yeah, that's fair.
That's part of it. But hey, that Russian sounds pretty good to me.
Thanks, Ian. I did, unless there were any other questions about that, I just wanted to kind of ask Dan a very similar question. Like,
I do have a question before you go there.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
You said the coffee dream died or something.
It didn't.
Is it dead forever? Because we're looking. I mean, we're looking real bad in terms of this coronavirus stuff right now.
As of Friday, we're fucked again.
It does appear as though there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. After,
yeah, no, I think
scenes.
I'd love to do that again. I think that there's a market for it in Phoenixville. I think that Phoenixville doesn't have great coffee right now.
Shots fired.
That is.
I don't feel bad. I said what I meant, and that was why I left my job for it. So that's okay. Yeah. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think I was right, and they should take that as a challenge. And if they made better coffee, everybody would win. So fuck off, guys.
That was beautiful.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Parker, I want to partly explain why I was so wrong about your pathway being linear. I remember in high school that you were probably a part of some business class, I think, and you created a product. And others of you may have been involved, but it was Ouch Ball.
What? Oh,
I don't remember that at all.
Ouch Ball.
Remember this vaguely, and what class was it in?
I don't know. I wasn't in it. All I know is that you came into the auditorium one day with like a styrofoam ball poked through.
Like thumbtacks and shit like that.
What?
I think that was just being 17. I don't know if that was like business savviness.
I hear you, and obviously you're right, and obviously it's absurd. But that to me is like exactly what.
Just making people hurt.
No, that's like inventing something that it's obviously absurd and it's obviously the silliest thing in the world. But that also to me, is a clear line between what you're doing now and where your mindset was at a certain point.
That's that's interesting. I don't know. That's funny.
Maybe
Yeah.
the listeners can agree or disagree with me. There's something creative about that, and obviously it's stupid and silly. But yeah, you were 17 and like perhaps one of the most genius 17-year-olds that's ever existed.
Yeah,
Only it took off.
I'll second that.
If only it took
Should have
off.
gotten that patent.
That was ouch ball. Anyway, Dan, I'm gonna jump in real quick just so that because there's not much for me to say, and I think picking
Wow.
up.
How dare you say something like that about yourself, about your journey?
No, so like the conversation about how much people are important to like what you decide to do.
Forgot all about that.
Yeah. And so basically I think in the last step of getting me to where I am now has been this weird version of like, Ian, you were sort of frustrated by that being a distraction, like the fact that there's so much interpersonal like the fact that there's politics to deal with, or the fact that there's like nuance in the way that you're supposed to word an email to people, and all of that sort of stuff is like distractions from the problem solving that you want to spend your time and energy on. And
No, dude, I love taking half an hour to draft an email. That's easily my favorite activity.
And to me, it's like a very similar thing. It's one of these weird things where like a circle on opposite ends of things will meet up at the same place. So for me, did you guys catch that sort of visual metaphor?
I think that just went right over my head.
Circle, if you lay a circle flat, you got opposite ends of that line. But you turn it back into a circle and the opposite ends will meet back up at the same place.
Oh boy.
You got me? Geometry?
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
So
geometry.
basically, where I was about, 6 to 8 months ago, maybe a year ago now, was like I craved that interaction between people. And I realized every day going to school, and we'll figure out, I guess I should start at the beginning, but I'm not going to. But like that going to school was like, I needed, I don't know, a shot of energy from other people. That was useful to me. But what ended up being the breaking point was not that that was a distraction, but that was so disappointing. And that the sort of professional persona was so inauthentic. Not that it was a distraction from what I wanted to get done, but that it was the whole point of the things that I was doing, teaching kids, being around people and trying to like just be happy around other people and make them feel comfortable and safe in an educational environment. But that was so consistently undercut by the weirder, less authentic version of that interpersonal contact.
Dude, you're speaking to my soul a little bit. Like I don't have to worry
right?
about
and again,
keeping
like,
kids happy, but
but that's like why I don't know, opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of that need for interpersonal interaction, but similar reasons for that interpersonal interaction in the professional world to become frustrating and ultimately a tipping point. So here's my story. So originally went to school for English, studying English literature with a focus on dramatic literature, and was doing plays in college and in high school too, and figured that would be like a natural place for me to land. But it turns out you need to have some kind of foresight and planning in order to execute something like that. I guess, which is true for a lot of things, and is a fatal flaw of mine and some of my compatriots. But anyway,
I hope it's not fatal.
Yeah, we're still here. But after school, spent some time. So after graduating from an undergraduate degree with a degree in English, right, and philosophy too, was a minor. But realized that like there isn't really anyone just asking me to read them things or tell them what books mean or like write things for them for money or for, even if it wasn't money, it was barter system and I could just, they would like hand me potatoes or hot dogs or something.
Hot dogs.
So if you are getting an English degree right now, loyal listeners of Steve and Lynda Make a Podcast, let me just tell you right now, there isn't an exchange of reading for hot dogs. So
that's what you were banking on.
Yeah, in case that was your quote unquote. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's been 7 years.
We're
so
freelancers. Come on.
That's true. It's been a while. Maybe the world has changed. So, but I ended up. So I have ADHD pretty bad, and it means that when I don't have a structure, I don't do much of anything, and I avoid a lot of responsibility, and I start feeling very bad about who I am. And so for a while, I was living with my parents and didn't have a job and was just hoping that I could just force myself into writing something. And I was never able to do that. And I think now I realize because there was no one around and because I never had that kind of like B vitamin shot of just being around other people and being dynamic with other people and having conversations with other people. Didn't know that at the time. Now I know that that's something I needed. So what I ended up doing was taking a couple of jobs at a number of grocery stores. And so one grocery store has a small cafe. I don't know that they still do, but I worked in the cafe there. And then do they still have a cafe?
It's not open right now, but it's still there.
Oh, of course. Yeah. My man Davey B. Shout out to good old Davey B. What it do? Cafe manager. I hope you guys are doing okay. Well, obviously you're not right now. Sorry. Oh, brother. But I was working basically 7 days a week at a grocery store and another grocery store's cafe. And it was stimulating on a number of levels that I was partly able to just punch the old Flintstone clock card and go home fully separate from any kind of responsibilities that I had, maybe would linger from like an
free.
Yeah, exactly. Also supremely hopped up on caffeine, which is a danger for those of you with caffeine addiction.
So Brendan,
also a necessity.
Yeah, Ian.
You got to keep going somehow. I'm curious did you have these realizations about needing, things like personal interaction and accountability, and like were those things that you realized like around this time when you were like working these jobs, or is this something that came later? Or like what was how did that process go?
No, I had no clue. Like self-awareness. I had some vague self-awareness, but that's something that I developed and maybe am not even fully yet settled on what the best sort of circumstances to like set up around myself to succeed are. So no, I had no idea. And but I knew that I was willing to push myself to a certain level of exhaustion working essentially 2 full-time jobs that were both like not downtime jobs, like retail jobs. If any of you know, are
bless you.
Yeah, they're demanding as shit.
Yeah.
And even if you are extroverted, which I think is like 90% of my personality, it's still exhausting. It doesn't mean that you're just like gleefully goofing around with people all the time. Like customers can be shitty. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Also, just the physical toll on your feet.
Yeah. Standing up, no one's supposed to stand for that long in one place. So no, I didn't know that I needed that. I was just like unconsciously benefiting from that swell of energy, and that's what sort of allowed me to push myself past my limits in those positions. So I'm getting paid a
Gotcha.
little better than minimum wage, but I'm exhausted and all of this, but I'm still doing it, and I still did it for more than a year, at essentially 7 days a week.
What year was that, Brennan? I don't remember that at all.
It's because I didn't talk to anybody. I was working the whole time, Dan. That's why I don't remember, because everyone forgot about me.
He just said that, Dan.
It's gonna sound like I'm leaving.
Dead to the world. No, it was 2015, 2014 to 2015.
Okay.
But luckily, I was able to assess my own mental well-being and like mental health enough to call it quits when, honestly, when my body was at the ripe old age of 23 breaking down. So, not working 7 days a week and being on your feet the whole time, and yeah, it's exhausting, and I lost probably like 25 pounds. Um, and it honestly, like, it wasn't a health crisis, but it got to the point where I just couldn't justify it anymore. So what happened at that point was really interesting. So I got on Craigslist and was looking for, because I didn't feel even legitimate enough a professional person to like to look at things on monster.com or anywhere where it would require like a resume and a cover letter. I just didn't feel adult enough even to justify going to those places. So I went to Craigslist and looked up a couple of ads for like tutors, and called or reached out to a guy who's local, and got a phone call. And honestly, the first time that like who answers a phone from a phone number that who answers a phone call from a phone number they don't recognize ever?
Maybe in 2013, but not now.
Yeah, right. This was 3 years past anyone had ever answered a phone call. But miraculously, I looked at it and like I was in my parents' kitchen and I just thought, well, I didn't think anything. I just answered it, which was so weird because I don't ever do that. And it was a guy named John offering me an interview to train to tutor test prep for high school students. And I got the job. I did this sort of freelance gig with him for a number of years. He and then gradually introduced new students as well, from through family members and through some high school teachers that I was still in contact with, and gradually sort of grew what I would call now like a small business. I didn't really think of it at that time as a small business, but yeah, worked with another tutoring company, and so for about 5 years, I've been tutoring SAT and ACT test prep. I started to study for the LSAT to see if maybe I would go to law school. It didn't pan out, but I did introduce that to my portfolio of potential subjects. Um, Also tutored things like AP Calc, AP Stat, some stuff like that. And then after a bit, realized that, again, this notion of being around people came back up. So I was with individual students and I was with families, which was really satisfying. But I was jumping around here to there, and the relationships that I had with students would be temporary. So I wouldn't really actually be building any kind of relationships with them long term, unless like we needed to study for a new test or unless their siblings were preparing for things. And I do have a number of families that I still work with that I actually do like emotionally care for, but so much of it was kind of mercenary and temporary and tied to hours, right? Like that I had to be putting in hours in order to make an income that would pay my bills. So it just felt like this alienation from people that I was actually in their homes with, which was weird. And so I realized, all right, I actually need to figure out some way to become a part of a community again. And I can't just be driving here and there, knowing people for a month and then severing those relationships, because it's honestly pretty emotionally draining. Um, and so I went back to school to get a master's in education and went to a 1-year program, got certified, got a master's, did some student teaching, and worked as sort of a long-term sub in a school for a year. And it was great. But it was temporary. And again, I found myself, even though for that year I had this community, after a year I had to sever those relationships sort of because the contract was not long term. And so I spent the summer, and it was this summer during COVID, interviewing, calling people, reaching out to people that I knew from various schools that I had either worked with or attended.
Or had gone to.
Yeah. And got so little feedback and got such sort of curt response that just felt like none of the work that I had been doing was being recognized at all, which was really hard because I worked hard as fuck for every single student that I knew. And it all came to a head at some point when I had an interview, or I sent out my resume to a school, and they responded and said they responded by email and said, let's set up an interview. Went through this interview, went through a demo lesson, and I was really hopeful because it was a job that I was like uniquely qualified for with English and math that I'm certified for. And these details will blur them out for anyone who's listening, but you know what you did, and it's fucked up. So there. So didn't even get word from them for about a week or two. And I reached out to the people that I knew at that school in that district. And turns out they had already moved on. And that the reason that they did not move me past the demo lesson, in fact, the reason that I was already set up for failure after the first interview, was because when they called to set up an interview, my voicemail box was full, and they were miffed that they had to email me instead.
Fucked.
That's nuts.
And I fully recognize that in the professional world, those are things that matter to people. And I fully recognize that in part that's my own responsibility. But I guess I just
But
realized,
you don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't want to be a part of a system that matters that much to. So like, you're not going to even, so you're going to put me through some hoops. You're going to ask me back for a demo lesson, which I have a lot of preparing sort of to set up for. But all along, you've already got essentially a red X mark next to my resume because of something that arbitrary. And and again, I understand, but it was just like, all right, let's see where else I can maybe go to.
That also just seems like so clicky, kind of, because like, I don't know, what if you had gotten that position and then something very small down the road had happened? Is that like, would they have I don't know, terminated a friendship because of that. I
Right.
think that red flag.
They'd probably kill you.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it is this weird, like, if you had been like, and they had seen you if they had seen me interacting with students, and seen how hard I worked, and seen the amount of empathy that I exhibit, just like partially by nature and partially by really sincere effort, um, then no, those things wouldn't have mattered. But it's this weird thing where now, because the professional world is dictated by these like humanless interactions, um, they don't have that other part of me to weigh against this like absurdly arbitrary but admittedly childish and stupid failing of mine.
I wouldn't go that far, man. People's mailboxes fill up. It's like you're a human being.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds
I
awful.
don't need
and I'm
sympathy
sorry you had to go through
because
that.
guess where we are at this stage. After
We're
that
doing
happened,
good.
I realized, okay, I've got to cut my own way through some shit. And one thing that I've been doing as a hobbyist is growing mushrooms. If that's something that I can do as at the same time as making relationships with people in the community, and at the same time as leveraging my own eagerness to like honor those relationships without all of this stuff about being judged for arbitrary things that, like, dude, uh I am ashamed of, and partly you're right, Ian, like I shouldn't necessarily be ashamed of because it's just how my brain works. It's something I work on, but it's there. If I can avoid having to interact with that kind of Spartanness, um, then yeah, I'll fucking grow mushrooms in my basement and sell them to restaurants. And that's where we are.
That's beautiful. I would just say, like, it seems like there's a little bit of a like common thread of, I don't know, like yeah, just like making something good out of a shitty situation. Uh which I don't know. I mean, I guess sometimes you just got to go through some shit.
And realize what your priorities are, and at the same time as where your priorities are not.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, I don't know, I guess it can be very crystallizing when like you're just having an awful time, uh and you've got no choice but to sit down and be like, all right, well, what the fuck am I gonna do?
Yeah. All right.
It-
So Dan, go on. What are all of the horror stories in your background?
All right. You guys are going to have to ask me questions because I don't know my own journey and I haven't prepped.
Would you say your because like when I was saying that thing about Parker, I was thinking maybe Dan's uh, pathway is a little more linear. I don't know, but yeah, would you say your pathway is linear?
There's no such thing as straight lines, Brendan. You know that by now.
Yeah, I would say mine's pretty linear.
Mark, are you okay?
I'm dying. That's all the ways.
Dan, precisely
Parker.
how linear is it?
Parker, we've already covered you, so
Yeah, pipe down.
if everybody on the line can mute.
Oh man.
Are you all right?
He's fine, Dan.
We can't hear him. Parker, give another cough. Okay, he's good. He's good.
Shut up.
Yeah, it's sort of from a certain point. So all the way back in the beginning, I was feeling pretty burnt out at the end of high school. And for a while I was really feeling like I guess I knew I was going to college no matter what, but wasn't super thrilled on it for a good chunk of time there. I just felt pretty, yeah, like I said, pretty burnt out. High school is weird in that you have a lot of classes in the same day. And I don't know, I feel like I got too ambitious in trying to take stuff just to kind of keep in the highest level courses. And I think it was too much for me, probably. I'm kind of happy to have gone through it because I feel like it kept doors open. But also it did suck like toward the end. I sucked at math, but was still taking BC Calc. Like that was just dumb. That wasn't a fun time. And toward the end of high school, I had no clue what I wanted to do. So basically my strategy was to apply to a couple schools, undecided, and just try to give myself an opportunity to pick something up as I got a little bit more clarity there. And so ended up going to Penn State. Again, went in undecided and was really thinking like business in the beginning. I had no clue what I wanted to do, honestly. So I was just trying to work through like entrance to major type classes, keep the gen eds rocking, and was kind of on that business school path for the first 3 semesters, really. And then I finally took an IT course in the last semester before I had to declare a major, and jumped into information sciences and technology 4 semesters in. And that was after kind of like going through, not completely dipping my toe into some of those other majors, but kind of like Parker was saying, at the same time I was doing those business classes, I was also evaluating whether I wanted to do architecture, landscape architecture, graphic design. And the moment that changed for me was kind of sitting in the advisor's office. And I was already a semester and a half in or something. And she was walking me through the fact that those were all 5-year programs and that I would have to enter them like at the end of that semester, effectively making 6 years of college. I was like, I'm going to cross those off now. And was kind of sad about it because they're all obviously a little bit more graphically inclined, which is, part of the reason I'm doing all the stuff that I'm doing now on the side of the data analytics to kind of satisfy those creative urges. Anyway, went through information sciences and technology at Penn State, really liked it. There was a lot of project-based work. And I felt like I talked about this a little bit last week, felt like I naturally gravitated toward a leadership role in all of those groups. And it was a weird major because there was so little emphasis on exams. Basically, the challenge was just, can you organize 4 different group projects, 4 or 5 different group projects with 4 or 5 different groups simultaneously throughout the semester? And that's like really pretty difficult, even just to schedule time with all those people, let alone execute on a project and learn what you needed to do to slap together something passable. But I think it was a real approximation of what the working world is like in terms of prioritization and working with others. And I'm super thankful for that experience. So that was cool. But at the end of the day, like my IT degree was pretty generic. A lot of those business courses counted toward it. And so I wasn't deeply technical. It wasn't like the comp sci flavor of that degree. It was, I think they called it information, people, and context option or something. And it basically sets you up to work at like, I don't know, as like an entry level consultant. And I was like, ooh, I was like, nah. It's like, not gonna do that. And so I took a role at the small company in State College that I interned with. They make a software package, and I was doing kind of like an infrastructure project during my internship, and jumped into some SQL reporting there as my full-time role without really having any SQL training whatsoever. Like I'd hit it in one of my classes at like the 200 level, but really didn't have a lot there. And so that was linear from, my second year in school through that period, and through kind of what I'm doing now. I've used SQL in all 4 of the positions that I've had since then. Obviously doing different things in those positions in terms of whether they're more of a reporting slant or whether I have more of like a customer focused position in, specifically in the role that I'm in currently, and also 2 roles back, a little bit more of that and a little bit of like project management experience. So that has been linear, but that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about data analytics. We're here to talk about photography and video. And that stuff has all been on the side. And so I think we touched on this last time, but it's tough. I got interested in some of those things. And thank you for mentioning, I think, Parker, it was you again, the art in high school, right?
Yeah.
I guess for a long time, I never considered anything artistic or visual as a major, besides, like I said, the architecture, graphic design, real quick in the beginning. And I think for a long time in my life, I didn't have an appreciation for my own inclination toward those things, or that it was viable as like a source of income or anything like that. And so I probably buried some of those urges deeper than I should have subconsciously. And very happy to have allowed them to resurface, but kind of took a lot of art in high school and forgot about it. I think I took everything but AP art. I took AutoCAD classes in high school, the Photoshop classes, worked on, we had an animation class. I forget who taught that. I don't know if you guys ever took that class, but that was really cool, and got to work on a Mac for the first time, which was like a big influence in my decision to like save up for a MacBook and get that with some of like the working money that I had in high school. And so like that stuff, I just all kind of, I don't know, forgot or ignored completely when it was time to like choose a direction that I wanted to go.
I think, to be fair to you and to be entirely unfair to the system, that sounds like exactly the kind of shit that would just be like unspoken taboo stuff to commit yourself to. It's like no one ever indicates that stuff is as valuable as it is.
Agreed. And I'm sure we could probably talk about this stuff for like 5 episodes straight. But I think that's one of the big things that younger people are going to face. Like, I don't know that we have a good system in terms of, or at least I don't think we had this in Phoenixville High School for sure, kind of educating people on what college looks like, or what day-to-day life looks like when you get X role in X position.
Yeah.
What are the tasks? What is the individual versus collaborative breakdown? What is it going to pay? What are you going to have to pay to get into that position? I don't feel like I had any of those answers, and I also didn't care.
Well, because you didn't know.
Because I knew I was taking the boatload of money out, and I kind of just postponed all of that stress. Because at the time, I don't know if it's smart to do that, but it certainly helped me. Like, I wasn't going to do anything to change it in the moment, so just not worrying about it until the end was super helpful. But yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of how I got into the data side, and then resurfaced on photography probably 2 years ago. I got my first camera. One of my good friends, Jake, shout out to Jake, was like, you should try Instagram. And I was like, no, like, I don't want to try Instagram, or like, what the hell would you even do on Instagram? But I downloaded it, made an account, started posting some phone pics, was really liking it. And I quickly was like, okay, I definitely want to get a camera and try getting something with interchangeable lenses. And this is going to be something that I'm going to fall a little bit deeper into for sure. And that was about 2 years ago. I've always kind of been doing some video editing, but so all these activities, they all just kind of coalesced. And I would say the stuff that I'm doing now really started hitting hard 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And spending a ton of free time. Like, I can't like overstate. I cannot state enough how much of my free time that I've spent on this, just to kind of get up to a place where I feel like I've been making progress and kind of like the things that I am making, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of time. And it's been great because I've loved it, but like, I spend a lot of weekends, spend a lot of nights, to get kind of to the point where I feel comfortable, going back to the other topics from a couple other episodes, like talking to customers and trying to see if I can help them in a way that I can profit from and grow that hobby further.
And
but
that's something I think we should talk about in a future episode if Steve and Lynda are gracious enough to have us back in the studio.
We're on borrowed time.
Yeah. But is the notion of Yeah, I mean, we sort of phrased it as how many pots are you boiling, and what is the appropriate number of sort of pots to be boiling at any given time.
How many burners do I have? 2 or 4?
Yeah, 6. We were just watching them binging with Babish. She's got 6 burners. Anyway,
Wow, what a life.
I I think that having your foot in a professional door at the same time as trying to build something for yourself is really, really hard. And I think that you are the hero of millions of people right now.
You're at least my hero.
Yeah, at least mine.
I can hear the applause, the thunderous applause.
Honestly, though, dude, it's impressive to see like the level of mastery that you've achieved.
Oh my god,
like
guys!
Doing...
Absolutely, you need to stop.
No, just Dan,
yeah, it's that.
I can't handle like more than 2 seconds of that.
Honestly, though, dude, it's like I see the stuff you're putting out, and it's incredibly professional. I can't think of like a more flattering way to say that. Like it just looks like
you have a good
it looks
aesthetic.
like you've been doing this for years. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like I said,
cool.
1.5 years. Years, plural.
No. I'm talking like like decades. Like, are you feeling old, Dan?
Oh my gosh, stop.
The quality of your work suggests that you're ancient.
So, from my perspective, I do feel like I'm finally getting to the point where I can see some good progress.
Oh, real proud of yourself, huh?
Quite. Like I feel like I've crossed the threshold from like really just struggling to get a handle on everything to like, okay, I can tell that I'm like, if this is the beginning, that's exciting type mindset, which is really fun.
How much of the stuff that you learned in high school feels like you were able to like use right away? Like, was there any attention to detail or like principles that you learned in those art classes that felt useful when you started?
I don't. This is gonna sound terrible, but like in terms of technical things, no, like nothing. I would say.
Even AutoCAD stuff, like you didn't feel like a technical sort of skill set came into play?
No, I think just because that program is so specific, it was. You could say that maybe I understood after that class that I liked the idea of jumping into a very full-fledged software package with a visual slant and knew that I liked to learn it.
Yeah, so like the carryover.
So apply that to Photoshop and like, or apply that to Lightroom or Premiere and any type of the Adobe Creative Cloud apps or anything similar. I knew I kind of liked that. Mm-hmm. And I had an appreciation for the learning curve.
So none
but
of
yeah, in terms of like technical skills, nothing really.
But at the very least, you like you felt a rekindling of some sort of passion that was familiar.
Yeah, this may be like a stupid phrase, but like the process learning was a carryover.
Or like, which how you mean?
Like the process of learning a software tool, or
oh, I see. Okay.
Like you can learn, you can get better at that skill, which is like weird and meta, but like yeah,
and I think it's something that we're all sort of applying, like differing degrees of we're not necessarily using the skills, right? Like if the driving question of this episode is how did you get here? Was it linear? Which is maybe just what I'm applying to the whole conversation, but that's at least implicit in part of it, right? The answer is often like, well, it's not exactly that linear when you look at it on the surface, but a lot of the sort of underlying skills that you're developing, the skills of diligence and perseverance are there. The skills of self-reflection and self-awareness are there. And they're things you're constantly developing as a young adult.
Did you have a degree in language and philosophy?
I forget.
Yeah, man. That's a very cohesive summary.
Any other summaries? What else are you guys picking up? Oh, we gotta let Ian go.
No, don't. No. We can do the little wrap up spiel.
Oh, you allow it?
I'll be here, maybe half asleep, but I'll be around. Common themes.
Fuck the system.
Whoa.
I'm writing that one down. Say it one more time.
I said it's fuck the system.
That's pretty good.
But kind of, I don't know. I think if anything, the takeaway, like, I'm not going to be forcing, like, honestly, I would have rather my parents harped more on, like, yo, become a carpenter, or become a plumber, or electrician. Like, you can make your own hours, you can still be making stuff. You're still creating, but, like, I don't know. That's like the other thing, I forget, I think it was me and Ian were talking about, that I wish, like, trade schools, vocational schools were an option. Just because starting out with all this debt, it's not really helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not really a takeaway.
No, I think it is. What are the things that, I think in our case we're talking about the education system mostly, but what are the things that the general systems around us are communicating as valuable? And that is kind of not always A, accurate, or B, considerate of who we are as individuals.
Yeah. I also think you just have to advocate for yourself in general, because nobody's going to do it for you otherwise. I think everybody's kind of, it sounds like that might be a theme of the whole podcast overall, maybe not even just this episode, but like I think like everybody kind of got here at some point because they made a choice for themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoops.
I like that.
But
Dan, any takeaways? Ian, any takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, like it seems like it's going to be similar to what you guys have already been saying, but just the idea that the conventional path, I don't know, yields conventional results, and if you want something a little bit different, yeah,
one
like
more
that.
time. So yields. One conventional. Yeah, got it.
You heard me. But yeah, if you I don't know, if your goal is not that, then like, and this seems like almost a non-statement, like it seems like it should be obvious, but yeah, you gotta like walk the path less traveled, I guess, if you want to, I don't know, see something different. And I don't know, I mean, every time I talk to you guys about this stuff, it's like, it's very encouraging to me, because like that's what I see you all doing, and yeah, it just gives me this like tremendous sense of hope that like this can be a more normal thing, or maybe it is a more normal thing than I realized, and that like you can make your way in the world, I guess vocationally, to use your word, Brendan, without just following the kind of like cookie cutter, well trodden path.
You guys hearing the dog?
that's cricket. Sorry.
No.
Oh, it's a cricket. Yeah, I think another thing that I'm picking up is that we're all, and I think that this is relevant to a lot of people. I don't know if it's all people or if it's especially young people or what, being pushed to a certain point where we're forced to stop and assess what is the appropriate relationship to our work.
Yeah.
That if we, like, we're all sort of getting to stages where we just cannot justify, as humans seeking some version of fulfillment, we cannot longer justify interacting with a professional life that's like asking certain things of us. And so we have to sort of go out into these other less traveled pathways.
If I can sneak one more in.
Hit it.
Maybe don't try to shoot for linear, because I see that causing people stress sometimes, and I know it certainly was for me. I don't ever remember thinking like that as much. I was always stressed more about like, would I find something, like in the process, as opposed to like, oh, I'm not getting to where I set out to go, because I had, especially on the early end, didn't know. But I do find it sometimes humorous to talk to people in that like college age, and they'll have very, and it's not a bad thing, but like very clear, like I'm at A and I'm going to B, but like I don't know, it doesn't take many years to be removed from that position to kind of like laugh and be like, sure you are, bud. And it's like, if that happens like that, great. But if it doesn't, and you have a rigid mindset about it, or you're tempted to be hard on yourself, it is a little bit of a tough position to maybe deal with mentally. So just like to keep that in mind, if you're at that age, is good to just evaluate occasionally.
Yeah. If anyone takes anything away from this, I'm going to just whisper it gently into your ears. You're doing just fine. You're doing great. Keep up the good work. We're all so proud of you. But for real, that there is no wrong way, that it's totally appropriate to feel like you are tossing back and forth. You're figuring out what is the approach. You're feeling things out. That's how people, that's how systems, that's how animals, and that's how rivers all find their way through things, is they take this way, feel it out, see if it's right. If it's not, they go that way. Yeah. Good. I think, Dan, that is the perfect summarization to end on. So for the sake of Ian's beauty rest, for the sake of your ears, if you've stuck with it this long, you haven't. So we're speaking to you in your dreams. Good night. Thank you so much for joining us. Next time, hopefully we'll be able to jump into a couple of things that we've brought up. Boiling pots. That's one thing we'll jump into. We've got some listener questions that we have to get to. Hey, Adam, thanks for sending it in. We've got a listener question. Who's excited?
I am.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. For all of us here at Steve and Lynda Make a Podcast, Steve and Lynda will be back next week joining us. I'm Brendan.
I'm Dan.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Parker.
Good goddamn night to you all. Boom. Who's got an outro for us?
That's perfect.
Good.
Unless someone has something better.
No, that was good.
All right, how do we stop this shit?